Arriving at Mount Auburn, come in the entrance, and there's a place where you can lock up your bike over on the right. If you're driving, you can park on any of the roads that aren't marked in green. At Mount Auburn, they do not allow you to bike on the roads or to run. It's a very quiet place. It hits the Zen score at a 10. My suggestion is to walk the green path. It's about a 2-mile path, and it takes you past all the main sites. It's fairly flat and easy to walk. Some of my favorite places are the Asa Gray Garden, the Bigelow Chapel and Sphinx, and the Visitor Center, also called Story Chapel. They're all right by the very front entrance. You can't go wrong. Even if you come in and spend a few minutes, you can see these sites. With a little bit of a longer walk, I love the Willow Pond. It's a beautiful loop that you can walk around the pond, and the flowers there are particularly nice. Also, the Washington Tower is terrific. If you're into a more interesting way to get to the tower, you can go down Palm Ave, which I particularly liked because you got to wind through the woods and walk up a hill to get to the tower, as opposed to just taking the road up to the tower itself. And for those of you that really want a famous person dead in your cemetery to make that cemetery special, Longfellow is also buried here. Mount Auburn is a half-mile from the Charles. It is the first cemetery in all of the United States. It was dedicated in 1831, which is 3 years ahead of the Boston Garden, which was the first public park in all of the United States. Mount Auburn and Boston Public Garden are particularly noteworthy in that it was a time in history where there was a desire to create places where people across all social statuses could gather. Prior to Mount Auburn, everyone was buried in a graveyard. The word cemetery is derived from the Greek word for sleeping place. And it was a concept where through landscape design, through gardens and arboretums, we were able to create a special place where people could come and visit those that have passed on. Inspired by Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, the original land was purchased from Stone's Farm for $6,000, which was the first 70 acres of what is now a 170-acre cemetery. The concept of a social gathering place was so inspiring that word traveled across the United States, and then in the 1940s, Mount Auburn was one of the most popular tourist destinations in all of the U.S., alongside Niagara Falls and Mount Vernon. Even if you're not a history buff, Mount Auburn is an awesome place to visit. There is beauty around every corner. The landscape architects have done a terrific job blending the cemetery into the surrounds, and at every turn, your eye catches something different. As you stand in front of Bigelow Chapel, you'll feel like you've just been transported to Europe or someplace in the last fantasy book that you just read. It was built in the 1840s in a Gothic style. The stained glass in the windows was imported from Edinburgh, Scotland. The original intention was for the funeral services to support the cemetery. It seats 75 guests. Now it hosts many functions. Just outside the chapel is the Sphinx. It was built in 1872 as a memorial for the Union dead and celebrating the end of slavery. The image was chosen to represent intellect and physical force. In order to construct the Sphinx, a 40-ton block of granite was purchased from Maine. At the time, it was the largest block of granite ever shipped and was a challenge just to get to Boston. The Sphinx has a dedication on the side, which reads, "American Union preserved, African slavery destroyed, by the uprising of a great people, by the blood of fallen heroes." Washington Tower was constructed between 1852 and 1854. Not surprisingly, it honors George Washington. It was modeled after feudal round towers from Europe. It's complete with battlements, Gothic windows, and a beautiful spiral staircase.